What is happening, everybody? My name is Jon Denton and welcome to episode 6 of State of Play. On this week's show, I'm going to talk about the importance for critics not to be too involved in the game development process and a little bit about Nintendo's strategy on mobile. So just a quick one, if you're new to the channel and you like the idea of a YouTube channel that covers gaming from a sort of market industry perspective as well as the art and beauty of video games from somebody who's been a journalist for 11 years, then please do think about subscribing to the channel. Okay, on with the show. Okay, something I've been thinking about for a while and considering for a number of years actually, is how far should somebody who covers or writes about video games get into the game development process? Now I don't mean if they suddenly want to make a video game like Tom Francis, ex of PC Gamer, who went on to make Gunpoint and other things, amazing, and there's other people who've done the same, the Idle Thumbs guys for example. But how about somebody who is like a career critic, career journalist, whatever you want to call it? How far should they delve into the development process? And I studied film at uni, and it's like an equivalent of an English lit course but for film, so a lot of like academia and reading about films, and some of it was bollocks and some of it was good. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is people who are trying to be film academics were going to delve too far into the production processes of film and know all the nitty-gritty. Then they would lose sight of the sort of audience's eye and lose sight of what it is that makes an audience love a film, because they'd be so obsessed with how well made it was or how difficult it is to make. I think when it comes to video games, that point is even stronger, because there is a real disconnect between the regular public and people like me and people who can actually program. I know how to point a camera and shoot something. I could make a film in my back garden right now with my kids. It wouldn't be very good, but you know what I mean. I cannot turn around and use this computer and make a video game right now without extensive study. I could probably just about knock together a Mario Maker level. So as somebody who's covered games and written about games and now likes to talk about games on video, and has done so from like a semi-academic point of view, and I never want to go too far down that rabbit hole either. I always want to try and keep things light and entertaining, because that's the point. Just trying to have fun, and if we can get some insight on the way, fantastic. But I think it's important to a degree for obviously those people, for people like myself, to have a sort of vague understanding of how these things work, and that's something that you just get through osmosis over time from studio visits, just from speaking to developers. But I think there's a temptation for some people who write about games to really study on how it's put together, maybe study programming themselves, study programming, study the pipelines, really study the process. And I think the further that you do that, you're in danger of losing what it is the consumer loves about video games, or the public loves about games. And so what I'm trying to say is basically, if I, somebody who doesn't know how to program, starts to really understand how difficult it is just to put a basic AI routine together or something like that, then I will start to become enamored with almost any game, and I will start to lose sight of the wood for the trees. And it becomes harder to be critical, and I don't like being negative about games. I actually prefer being positive about games, championing the good games, discussing the merits of games, but inevitably there's going to be some negativity, and there's going to be some games that, quite frankly, some games do need taking down when they're asking for your time and asking for your money, and that's just the reality of it. I don't take great pleasure in doing that, but at the same time there can be a little bit of catharsis to it, and I think there's value in that, and obviously people do like that as well. If I got into it too much, I really started to try and appreciate every single thing, I would think every game's a miracle. I've said that already. So it would be almost impossible for me to be critical. I would be critical about different things perhaps, like I see the development community is in their community, and it's stuff that quite frankly I don't understand. But I think the job of a critic, and this is another video that I'll make another time, that word is a funny word because it implies negativity and criticism, but I much prefer it as somebody who's put in a lot of work and has a degree of expertise in a subject matter, and I do because I've been doing this for 11 years and I've reviewed hundreds and hundreds of games and have a broad spectrum and understanding of games. I think it's kind of up to you guys to decide whether that's true or not, but I know I've put in the work. And I think there's people like me, and whether you're out there podcasting, whether you're out there writing, or whether you're out there doing videos, or you work on a magazine or a website, whatever it is, there's people out there who've been putting in that work to try and entertain and inform people out there playing, buying games, and create conversations and create discussions, and I think that's the other side of it. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of knowing how everything works and then not be able to be critical or insightful anymore. I know we've had quite a few people from the development community jumping on the channel thanks to my last video, 5 mistakes indie devs often make when trying to contact the press. If you haven't checked that video out yet, please do. And I'd be really interested in everybody's thoughts, but also the thoughts of developers on whether or not games journalists, games critics, people involved in that day-to-day gaming discussion, how far down the development rabbit hole should they go if they're not planning on making their own games. And that's obviously the obvious caveat, if they're not planning on making their own games. Obviously, if you want to make games and you want to be a creator, then you will need to go and study and learn and get better. That's not the point I'm trying to make. So question of the day, and this applies to everybody, how far do you think people who are doing day-to-day discussion of games should really learn about how games are made? Interesting question, right? I'm hoping we get a really good debate in the comments. I must say, I've said this already, I say this every single episode, but the standard of comments on this channel, this is a small and new channel. We're not even at 1,000 subscribers at the time of making this video. I'm getting videos with 20, 30, 40 comments of such high standards, such high debate, so I want to thank everybody who's leaving those types of comments. If you haven't left a comment yet, if you're just lurking, please do get involved in the conversation, because I honestly think that there's something, I can feel it, there's something brewing here, and this is what I've wanted from day one. There's something brewing in those comments. Every time I see a comment, every time I see a new subscriber, every time I see a like, every time I see a view, I get fired up, man. This is what I want to be doing over the next few years. I'm absolutely loving this channel so far. I'm loving being able to do this show. Anyway, how far do you think people in day-to-day discussion about games should be learning about game design? Okay, just one more point for this show, and interestingly, on the next show, I'll be back on my travels, walking around my very old stomping ground of Brighton. I'm going to make a little film out there, unless the weather is terrible, which it could be. It is January in England. And getting State of Play back out on the road a little bit, and in future episodes there'll be guests and different features and things like that. But for now, when there's a topic to discuss, I just want to get in front of the camera and start talking. And we've talked a lot about Nintendo over recent episodes. In a few episodes ago, I talked about how I think Nintendo kills it in 2017 through the Switch and through mobile. And then in the last episode, I talked about how Nintendo kind of fucked it with the Switch reveal, which I still think, especially when we see there's 5 launch games, and the pricing of those accessories, it's only exacerbated my point. Do I still want a Switch? Of course, I'm a human being. I'm a Nintendo fan, I'm a video game fan. But on January the 18th, Nintendo did an excellent Nintendo Direct on Fire Emblem, and I think it served 2 purposes. One, it showed that Fire Emblem matters to Nintendo, and it really kind of cemented the fact that this is a big brand for Nintendo. Whether or not you thought that before, the perception is now, from the new 3DS game, from the Switch game, from Fire Emblem Warriors and some footage there, and also the new mobile game, it cements this is a real brand for us, this is something to be paying attention to. That to me is just a really good solid piece of marketing, and obviously Fire Emblem is an amazing series, so there's not really any negatives there. And I think getting this game onto mobile and quickly, February 2nd on Android and apparently iOS 2, maybe, we'll see, I'm not entirely sure, there's slightly confused messaging on their part. But getting Fire Emblem on phones in a way that's free to play and has microtransactions. I don't like free to play and microtransactions, right? But I'm thinking from a sort of Nintendo point of view here. And I have faith that the company won't allow themselves to fuck this up too badly. Getting Fire Emblem on your phone, what a brilliant series. It seems to have been completely designed for the phone. I think that thing is going to turn over money. I think that thing is going to do damage in Japan. I think it's going to do damage in the West. I think it's a great idea. It's great to see that Nintendo's announcing and then releasing really, really quickly these franchises. And I'd been thinking about how would Metroid work, how would Zelda work. Didn't even really think about Fire Emblem, much more obvious choice. And I'd like to see Advance Wars too. So fingers crossed for Nintendo that they nail the game, they nail the microtransactions in a way that's not too egregious. I don't think Pokemon Go had a problem with that. So I know that's not Nintendo, I know it's Niantic, don't yell at me. So fingers crossed, I do think this thing's going to turn over money, and I'm excited that Nintendo is finally branching out and learning ways of capitalizing on those incredible IPs. I mean, this is a second tier, maybe even third tier IP for them, but they're bringing it to the forefront and making it important, and I think that's brilliant. Fingers crossed for the Switch, fingers crossed for Fire Emblem, fingers crossed for Nintendo, right? You know, I'm not a Nintendo fanboy in the traditional sense. I won't just rush to their events at any opportunity, but I do recognise greatness and have done for many, many years. Okay, like I said, just a quick episode before I'm back out on my travels. Thank you very much for watching. Please do think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I feel there's some good momentum on the channel right now, and very excited about things. Fantastic to see so many new people coming in from that previous video, but also much love to everybody who's been here since day one. Anybody who's liking, anybody who's sharing on Twitter, if you're putting things out on forums that you're part of, honestly, it does mean the world to me. It really does. I've got massive love for you guys. So please do speak to me in the comments, hit me up on Twitter, either there or there. Subscribe if you haven't already. I've been Jon Denton, this has been State of Play, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace!